Occupy Central movement, I would tell them that they should now rescind their act.
Ms. Sit-ho. Thank you, Mr. President. Mrs. Starry Lee said that the U.S. government was behind the Occupy Central movement in Hong Kong, and she quoted the example of the Occupy Wall Street for comparison. And did you know that the Occupy Wall Street movement was suppressed by the U.S. government, and there were court cases taking the government to court asking for compensation of those injured within the movement? I think it's very ridiculous to make that kind of analogy. We ought to investigate the causes of Occupy Central. I'm sure somebody will tell you that within the council, an evil packed in beautiful clothing is one of the causes. Dr. N. Zhang, by comparison, is more modest. I don't wish to respond to Dr. Zhang, who mentions myself in her remarks. Dr. Zhang spoke in a very strange manner, and her body gestures were also very peculiar. So much so that it sort of overrode what she really wanted to express. I think, Dr. Zhang was there to give us a laugh. When Occupy Central first started, the pro-establishment camp and the pan-democrats were worried that there would be bloodshed and there would be misfires. And we shared a common goal. We want to cool down the situation. And both of us would like, or rather asked or urged the supporters to become self-restrained. Now, these two motions, however, go to reflect that there is no consensus within this council, and it all makes us even more determined to strive for democracy. We want to ask why there is civil disobedience. Going to the root of the problem, we found that the government has not implemented policy to respond to the public's demand. And also the pro-establishment camp is always turning black to white into white. And we have to become very restrained in hearing those sort of remarks. The occupiers, I would like to remind you that you should not let your anger override your reasonable thinking, rational thinking. In the past, the pro-establishment camp didn't want to invoke PNP. And in 1998, since the SRAR was established, we have invoked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time the PNP, one airport, short piling, and SARS. And they were targeted at the statutory bodies. And for the two other cases, it has to do with the departure of Leung-sing, who joined New World, and also Lehman Brothers incident. And that happened after 2004. And actually, before the elections, the pro-establishment camp members in some election forums were forced to agree to invoking the PNP. So that was invoked in 2008. And the last time that we exercised PNP or invoked PNP has to do with Leung Chun-ying's failure to declare his interest in the West Kowloon design competition. At that time, he wasn't elected yet as the CE. So it seems that we were trying to make a bet, and exceptionally, we got the support from the pro-establishment camp to invoke PNP to do the investigation. Now, the recent select committee was an investigation into Timothy Tong, and at that time, we did it through petition and not invoking the PNP. And because we didn't have PNP, we couldn't summon ICAC and we couldn't get more documents, and we couldn't summon the ICAC officers here. Now, the greatest hurdle, actually, is that most members of that select committee came from the pro-establishment camp, and they tried to block us in asking questions. We were on the queue for wanting to ask questions, but then the hearing ended before we had the chance to ask questions. So we had to put together an alternative type of report. Now, there was so much corruption acts, Timothy Tong, Paul Chan, Donald Zhang, and C.Y. Leung. But every time it was the pro-establishment camp who were putting up hurdles to investigation. Now, this time round, they surprisingly wanted to investigate into members of the public, questioning that they were influenced by external forces. The President, you said you didn't see any external forces involved here. Now, if the motion is passed today and pro-establishment camp can invoke PMP to summon members of the public to come to the hearing, then that will anger everyone. Because the PMP is not targeted at statutory bodies and public offices, and you are using your power against the ordinary average citizen. Now, the Occupy Central movement started with the article of Benny Tai, and then there was much discussion in the community. Yes, indeed, we were organized. We wanted to use to carry out the campaign or the demonstration in a peaceful and loving manner. And on the 28th of September, we saw tear gas, and we suffered, but then we didn't retort. So I think our organization of the movement was successful. And the core team of the movement was willing to turn themselves in, and the police could investigate us. Now, as for the funding sources, when that was mentioned, demonstrators in the square were in an uproar, and they said that they're going to buy more bottles of water, and then they would retain the receipt, and over 10,000 members of the public would come here or 100,000 members of the public would come and attend the hearing. Well, what we are worried is just that you would not allow them to come and have a discussion with us here. Mr. President, the LegCo is obliged to understand what public sentiment is. And not only the pro-establishment camp would like to know why so many people were involved in the campaign. We Democrats do want the same thing to be done. Well, this scale and the insistence of the members of the public are really beyond our imagination. Well, young people are there, and they bring resources along together with them. We would like to find out more stories about how people's awareness has been raised in Causeway Bay, the middle class, and in Mong Kok, the lower strata of the society, and in Admiralty, the young students. Well, behind all these people, there are many stories which we would like to find out more about. And many people, they are just passers-by originally, ultimately joined. And there were also housewives who would like to bring a couple of bottles of water to the students, and then because of the incident on the 28th of September, they were trapped at the road in front of the APA. And then, well, she got angry, and then she was here for 30 days, joining the movement to fight for democracy. So what happened during the past month, many people had first-hand experience. We want to retain this oral history of this incident, and I've welcomed the LegCo spending money to try to capture all these down. Now, so at the House Committee, I counter-suggested that the CMAB should hold a public hearings. Or at the Constitutional Affairs panel, I suggested that idea, so that we would hold a public hearing to ask members of the public to talk about their first-hand experience, how the police enforce the law, and how they turn from a person who's not politically, who is not very interested in politics, into one who is very enthusiastic about politics. This is a sort of grand history of Hong Kong. I think the LegCo can consider using public funds to record that history. What I'm suggesting is to ask people to come and tell their stories. And I'm not suggesting that we should invoke PMP and they are summoned here to tell their stories, or else they would be committing a criminal offense. If you do go along that route, then you are really bullying people. In South Africa, there is this apartheid policy, and after that policy ended, after Mandela came on board, there was a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, because under the apartheid policy, there was so much abuse of power, there were so many crimes committed, and they couldn't come to real reconciliation. So they set up this committee, inviting the aggrieved people to come and retell their stories. Even those, the police who abuse the power or use violence, they are welcome to retell their stories, and through telling stories of these people could become reconciliated, so that these people would not live under such memories of suffering and division. So such kind of apology and hearing that can help comfort people. But then if we are using or invoking PMP and establish a select committee, that would also only create even further conflicts and confrontations. So today, I am all against this proposal. Truth, seeking the truth and reconciliation we should seek after, apart from striving for democracy. Within the police force, many officers are young people who would like to maintain order, law and order. Now, I've heard the story within a family when a police officer was using violence against a member, and one young man was had to have tears almost streaming from his eyes, because he was originally committed to become a police officer. And then in the movement, people's commitment or aspiration to become a policeman has been tempered. And within the police force, there are those who are committed to maintaining law and order in Hong Kong. I don't know what the senior management of the police think. We don't know what Chi-wai Leung thinks. How come that 87 rounds of tear gas were fired? And later, there were triad members assaulting the public in Mong Kok. And how come that the police were dispatching such a small team to enforce the law there? And the police officers enforcing the law in Mong Kok have also become, were sort of being sacrificed by the senior management of the police. So in view of this, I support Mr. Raymond Wong's motion, and that is to investigate the police's handling of the incident in Mong Kok. So I want to reiterate that I have come into contact with police officers during the evening, and they know well that the kind of condition Hong Kong is in now, and all they want to do is to be committed to their task and stay steadfast to their posts under the instruction of their superiors. But senior management of the administration do justice to these police officers. Don't use them as a tool for political oppression. And also within the LegCo, I hope that the pro-establishment camp will not abet the evil and would not become a tool to suppress the public, or else you will not be doing justice to Hong Kong people and your voters.
Mr. Gary Chen. President, I sat here for a long time listening to the comments made by many pan-democratic members, and there are some arguments which I'd like to refute here, and I'd also like to point out some of the errors here. First of all, I heard many pan-democrats say that Mr. Andrew Leung today is moving this motion and the scope is very broad. Apparently, everything will be within the scope, and if we embarked on this kind of investigation, so it will be an all-embracing investigation. What I'd like to say is, if you look at Mr. Andrew Leung's motion, yes, the scope might be broad, but then it's not like what Ms. Sit-ho said, that we were investigating the public or the students. And indeed, there were some members of the public and students who had joined the movement on their own volition. That's the outcome of the movement. But then we are not interested in the outcome. We are interested in the cause of it. I believe that in Mr. Andrew Leung's motion, in fact, that's been made very clearly. That is, we never said that we would be investigating the average participants of the movement, and if he holds the same view as Ms. Sit-ho, I think it's a misguided conclusion. And Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen said this morning, what's the reason for this movement? That's because of the restrictive framework imposed by the NPCSC, and he said that nobody ever said that he or she would like to overturn this SAR government, and he even said that the pro-establishment members were fabricating stories and we were smearing them by saying that there were external forces interfering with this. I think this is simply not true. First of all, Mr. Wong Kok and also Mrs. Regina Ip and their comments, as Ms. Sit-ho said, they quoted a large number of reports saying that there were external forces interfering with this movement. But then I've also noticed that Ms. Claudia Mo said that in fact, many of what has happened was done by the protesters themselves, and absolutely there was no involvement of foreign forces. So which side is right? And if we are not able to tell, then why can't we set up an independent inquiry to find out if foreign forces have been at play? In fact, I've heard this argument from the pan-democratic camp very often, and Lee Cheuk-yen said that no one was there to overturn the government, and Mr. Leung Yiu-chung said that this is an umbrella movement, not a revolution, and he even asked us to go down to talk to the protesters and take a look ourselves. Well, Mr. President, I've been there myself, and indeed there were many slogans saying that it's a revolution. And let's not forget that at the beginning of the movement, many social networks also call this an umbrella revolution. And if it's a revolution, then why is it not about overturning the government? So I think Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen is telling lies in broad daylight. And for many people joining this movement, they are not intending to overturn the government. But then there are signs to show that the organizer or the co-founder of this movement, they intended to overturn the government. We may have forgotten that what Benny Tai said on the day when he announced the start of the movement. He said that occupying Central would start from occupying the central government offices. In other words, it's about occupying the government. It's not just about fighting for democracy. And as we all remember, a few days into the movement, the three co-founders also openly call upon the public to call for the CE to step down, and they also besiege the CGO, paralyzing the operation of the central government officers. So from many signs, we can see that the co-founder or the organizer of the movement, they had done so in an organized manner, and they were there to overturn the government. So it's not us cooking up the stories. And they also said that we are adopting a scaremongering tactic. I think it's they who are adopting this scaremongering tactic, because Mr. Leung Yiu-chung just said that we were like FBIs and we were actually oppressing the public. I do not see any evidence to suggest that. Mr. Gary Fan also talked about a secret agent of the government, and he also referred to Nazi Germany. So is he scaremongering? And Ronnie Tong said that Article 27 of the Basic Law give us the right to assembly, and he said that the right to assembly, of course, would mean that there would have to be funds and also organization, and there's no need to inquire into it. And if this is a normal assembly, then of course I would not have asked for a thorough investigation. But then if you look at the Occupy Central movement, there have been reports, and they have said that there were a lot of funds from unknown sources, and some of them have gone to political parties, some have gone to the pockets of council members, and they have pocketed it first. And of course, I don't want to use the PNP, or I would not be doing this. Well, as Sid Ho put it, what people would just send out a bowl of sweet soup and a bottle of water, and then we try to investigate into this. We are actually looking at funds to the tune of several $100,000 or millions of dollars. Well, these would not have come from donations from ordinary members of the public. And what has this got to do with the overall movement? Well, we are not sure, and we cannot just rely on press reports to find out. That's why we have to inquire into it. Pan-Democrats have often asked us to go down and take a look so that we would understand firsthand as to what the protesters think. Well, I'd like to say that I've been watching closely what's happening, including the slogans and the banners. I've been watching them very closely, and just now, Mr. Kenneth Chan also used a lot of emotional remarks to describe the movement. But what I'd like to say that this is not a place for emotions. We have to convince others by rational arguments, and Mr. Andrew Leung's motion is not to inquire into the subjective sentiments of the participants. We are not trying to find out why they have to join the movement. We have to find out the co-founders, in particular the three co-founders, are there problems, and also in the process, have they done anything wrong, or have they committed any wrongdoing? So please do not confuse that. Mr. President, some members said that this debate is ridiculous. Well, if that is the case, then nothing is more ridiculous than occupying central government offices and then occupying roads and so on. Well, just now it's been said that, well, obeying the law is not everything about the rule of law. Well, I think this is really sophistry. Well, yes, obeying the law may not be everything about the rule of law, but then that is the fundamental thing, because law is about serving justice. But then if you contravene the law, definitely you will not be able to ensure that justice is served. And today we have also heard some members who try to incite students and members of the public to take to the streets. When compared to what Ms. Sid Ho just said, she said that she would like to see the incident resolved peacefully as soon as possible. I think she is contradicting herself, and that is not something that we have fabricated. In fact, just now, if you look at the remarks made by Pan-Democratic members just now, you can hear that. So do they have the sincerity in resolving this problem? Is that something that our lawmakers should be doing? Mr. President, we have now had this massive social movement, and if we do not get to the bottom of the incident, then we would not have done our job as lawmakers. We respect the right to know by the Hong Kong people, and we support the investigation. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen said just now that this is an insult to the Hong Kong people. I think he's putting the cart before the horse. In fact, occupying Central has already caused tremendous damage to our economy. the retail sector, the transport sector, and the catering establishment have already lost their income for a whole month. And we can see that there is no sign that it can be resolved shortly, and many restaurant owners and drivers have suffered loss in the movement. And well, Hong Kong has got a very good business environment, and yet some people have blatantly violated the injunction ordered by the court, and as a result, both public property and private property cannot be protected by law. I think this has crashed our good reputation. Mr. President, this is the largest mass movement in contravention of the law, and we should not try to package the movement using whatever names we like. This is an unlawful assembly, and what's more important is that many people who are out there might not be aware of the fact that they are breaking the law, and apparently they are taking this as a norm. They do not think that they are breaking the law, and many participants have not been prepared for this arrest, and when the police try to enforce the law, they resist arrest. So it's not like what they say, that is this civil disobedience act is contradictory to what they claim, and many pan-democratic members are actually trying to chant slogans for such acts. Well, in Hong Kong, we as lawmakers in the legislature, why do we have such stupid members? Finally, I'd like to quote from Martin Luther King, and I'd like to share this with those who support the movement. Martin Luther King said that there is no way that we can have peace unless and until everybody is aware of the fact that the end can not be separated from the means, because we are talking about the ultimate objective, and people will not be able to resort to evil means to achieve a beautiful end, because the means is the seed, and the end cannot be somewhat different.
Mr. Leung-sing, President, 2 motions on PNP have to do with the so-called Occupy Central movement. Let me put forward 6 observations of mine. Number 1, we could see that this is a publicly recognized law-breaking event. It has taken place for a month. There is the tearing apart of society, there is social confrontation, and also a blow has been dealt to the rule of law. And the occupied areas are becoming chaotic. A minority of so-called academics and professors and other people who are claiming to be taking orders from God, that this is an age of resistance, they say. The Occupy movement has happened in Admiralty, Mong Kok, and Causeway Bay. You call it an Occupy movement of love and peace, but then quite some violence has resulted. And even the co-founders have admitted that nobody could now control anybody. And the nature of the movement is, of course, a law-breaking event. At the beginning of the Occupy movement, the Bar Association released a statement saying that large-scale and long-term occupation of roads and public places result in obstruction of traffic. Such conduct is potentially unlawful, and it cites overseas cases to say that civil disobedience is a philosophical, not a legal principle. And it is not a defense at any court of law. No matter how lofty the motives of the action, there could be no impact on court rulings, and the people who occupy places should respect the freedom of other people and must be prepared to take up legal liability. And on the 28th of October, the Bar Association again released a statement on Occupy Central, saying that there is the call for mass disobedience against the injunction orders made for Admiralty and Mong Kok. It is said that the Bar Association is dismayed, and if there will be deliberate defiance of a court order en masse, there will be a direct affront to the rule of law. It again says that open calls to the public to disobey a court order applicable to them would undoubtedly constitute an erosion of the rule of law. The Hong Kong BA issues two statements, and they point to facts, and they tell us that in fact the movement has gone out of control. Number two, this actually is quite an apathetic movement. First of all, you block the roads and then you occupy the roads. In fact, it is quite hegemonistic. Occupiers were even searching police cars, taking meals to police officers, and even ambulances were given access only after a search. And then even our members' assistants were making it impossible for officials to go back to the central government offices by car. They obstruct the main roads, traffic is paralyzed, dozens of bus routes were suspended, and taxis have to take detours, and trams could only provide limited service, and there is congestion all over Hong Kong Island. Emergency vehicles were hampered, and people going to work and school are inconvenienced on a daily basis, and shops have their business affected. Some of them have even to wind up, and catering and other like banking industries have been affected one after another. People's daily lives have been disturbed, and there are a lot of grievances expressed. Professors, the police, district councillors, etc. have been talking to the protesters and students that they should leave in a peaceful way, telling them that they should return the roads to the public so the public can lead a normal life. And an old man over 80 knelt in front of a student to say that please give the roads back to the people. But then the protesters were unmoved. They have exhibited inhuman behavior. Number three, this is an illegal act smearing the police. The police have been maintaining law and order and social order in a professional way. That is for all to see. And in the occupied areas, people's lives have been disrupted, and some people are at the end of their tolerance limit, so they tried to clear the barricade themselves, and then that gave rise to conflicts, and the police were forming themselves into chains in order to separate the two groups of people. They were trying to mediate between the two groups and maintain law and order. But then some media smeared the police to say that there was collusion between triads and police trying to clear the sites. The intention is clear, that they want to deal a blow to the government. But then some of our members who claim righteousness are trying to follow up on the matter to say that in the council they would like to go to the root of the so-called collusion between triads and the police. But we all know the facts already. In Mong Kok, we could see they were putting up a brave act in that there were so many tents, and of course the anti-occupiers would like to clear all the tents. And in the end, some occupiers took away some banners and barricades and some tents. And some 6 double-deckers that were stranded were able to be driven away. But then there was still stark confrontation between the groups. The police were caught in between, yet they remained professional. As for Long Wall Road, and also the clearing of the site, some people actually started violent or thuggish behavior, and somebody was actually pouring what was suspected to be urine on the police, and there was resistance of arrest, and therefore that gave rise to the inappropriate use of force by 7 policemen. And somebody again used that to smear the entire police force. And the troublemakers who provoked the police were called heroes, and some members actually took the chance to attack the police. Really, this is some kind of eye-opener. Number 4. This is an illegal act involving the conflict of interest. In the Occupy movement, the so-called pan-democratic members had support both openly and behind the scenes. They actually were inciting the people, drumming up support on stage in the occupied areas. They disregarded the rule of law. They knew that they were breaking the law, but then they continued to do it. And also in the Legislative Council, using their status as legislators, they questioned the police, which were just enforcing the law, and they were attacking and smearing the police force. Some members, being members of the IPCC, before any investigation was made, had already judged the situation. This is a clear case of conflict of interest and conflict of roles. The entire purpose is to be anti-government and anti-establishment. Talking about interests, we saw on the internet some information exposed. Some members were saying that they should gather more information, but that was very clear already. There was the NED of the US and the CIA were involved in this movement. Mr. Jimmy Lai, the financier of the opposition party, was revealed to be contributing cash to the parties, and some members had actually been given money in order to take out election advertisements and also to support this Occupy Central movement. Some of them pocketed the donation, some refused to admit that they accepted the money. Well, if you work in a bank like me, you will know that if the cash is in your pocket, you wouldn't be able to tell whether you are just pocketing it for the moment or keeping it for yourself. And I think they have a seedy motive behind all this. Number 5, this is an illegal act that is using public money. Some pro-democratic members are saying the same things like protesters, and they are starting the so-called uncooperative movement in the council. They are blocking finance committee proceedings so that society cannot really function. Infrastructure, housing, and other projects are held up, and the costs will escalate. So this will have an impact on the spending of public money. And what is sacrificed is the welfare of the public. Shortly after the Occupy movement started, many of them lied on the streets. And yet some of the major players were able to come into the Legislative Council to spend the night with the help of members, assistants, and also the pro-democratic legislators, turning this council into an unlicensed guest house. They were using the heated water and other facilities, and in fact there were so many of them that they were not accommodated only on the 9th and 10th floors, but they were all over the place. The toilets were wet, and they were taking items without permission from the fridge, and in fact a condom had also been found. And in fact, LegCo has become the center of command for the illegal Occupy movement, and we are actually also paying a lot in terms of resources to the movement. Number 6, ever since the movement started, many retail and other businesses have been affected, and since the roads are blocked, there could not be a replenishment of stock, and logistics were all affected. If the roads are obstructed, then even business is obstructed. And we are now seeing the negative impact in September because of a blow dealt to the stock market. MPF income dropped by 3%, and hotel booking rate is dropping, and also even exhibitions have been affected, and we expect the economic growth to be reduced by 0.2%. This is a big figure considering the denominator. And the retail sector will have $110 million lost. There will be eventual negative growth. And it is said that in the end, $1,000 billion will be lost. And all this is going to deal a blow to Hong Kong's status as a trade center and an international financial center. The separation of powers is facing a paralysis, and our systems are near the brink of collapse. It is because the Occupy movement has made damaged the Hong Kong system. Our doctors have said that this is a tumor, that the sites should be cleared before Hong Kong can recover, that we can continue to build a healthy society. Because of these points, I will support Mr. Leung's motion and object to Mr. Wong's motion. And I'd like also to respond in passing some members who talked about our youngsters' future. I'd like to appeal to them, for the sake of their future, please do not allow them to continue to engage in illegal acts. Let us tell them to go home and to go back to their studies. So I speak, Mr. Deputy.
Dr. Low Wai-kok, Mr. Deputy, as the chair of the House, you moved a motion, and that is to appoint a select committee to conduct a comprehensive inquiry on the incident invoking the PMP. Now, starting from the 28th of September, there were blocking of roads extensively in Hong Kong. Now, Mr. Raymond Wong's motion is related somehow, but then he is focusing on the police's handling of the triad gangs attacks on the 3rd of October. Mr. Raymond Wong has made broad generalizations, which I don't agree to. And your motion, Mr. Deputy, reflects the majority views within the LegCo, and you have an impartial attitude, and you cover a lot of grounds in your motion, including the organization and planning, and also the administration's handling of the incident, and also how the incident has impacted on various sectors of the community. So that's why the Business and Professionals Alliance agree to your motion. Well, this motion is important. The Occupy Central movement has persisted for over 1 month. The demonstrators have blocked major trunk roads, and people's daily lives and even livelihood are jeopardized. And more people are opposing this movement. Different from what the organizers said, this is not a peace and love movement. And the areas covered are more extensive, including Mong Kok, Causeway Bay, and so on. The incident or the movement has gone out of control, and there is no end in sight. And there are incidents of clashes and conflicts, and many members of the public and police officers got injured. And even now, the court injunction orders have not been effectively implemented. The rule of law is being undermined. The opposition camp also triggered the non-cooperation movement at the LegCo, and many livelihood issues couldn't get discussed. And the three powers of the society have been jeopardized, and we are facing a divided society. This is most worrying. We have to reflect on how the incident happened and evolved, how we should learn lessons from the incident, because the incident is so complex. So in order that the inquiry can get on smoothly and achieve good results, I agree that a select committee be established to conduct inquiry invoking the PNP. Well, some people describe the PNP as a trump card of the LegCo. This comes from the Article 73 of the Basic Law, and it provides an important basis for LegCo to discharge its duties. And Article 91 says the LegCo and its related committees can to summon people to come up and provide witness. And if there is a need for us to find out the ins and outs of a certain incident, well, if in the case that we cannot carry out in-depth inquiry, we must invoke this so-called trump card to conduct an investigation. So it is necessary to invoke PNP to inquire into the Occupy Central movement. It is appropriate that we do so. There should be appropriate terms of reference for this select committee. I think we should focus on certain issues of concern to the public. First, it's about the how the incident happened and evolved, and what are the key factors, including planning, organization, funding sources, and so on. The movement is an illegal one, and it is extensive in scale, and this must not be some spontaneous movement of a few triggered by a few individuals. Now, consolidating the BBC and some overseas media reports, and actually the organizers of the Occupy Central movement started planning for the movement 2 years ago, and arranged for 1,000 people to go through drills of this movement. And they are resorting to a civil disobedience movement to challenge the SARG and central authorities. The organizers of the Occupy Central movement, in relation to how the movement will operate and where the resources will come from, have actually made a good plan in advance. Well, mass movement, well, it's easy to trigger mass movement, but then it's difficult to call a stop. Now, different groups with various demands may gather on the streets, and there are bound to be conflicts and confrontations and mixed fires, and riots are possible. Well, I don't believe that the organizers will be so naive as to think that this is not going to happen. Well, on the front stage, they emphasize love and peace, but behind this scene, they are happy that the movement is undermining the rule of law and public order in Hong Kong. Now, the questions we are facing is that where does the money come from for this movement, long-standing movement, and where do the resources come from? Now, media reports said that the organizers of the movement have got massive amounts of political donations for the movement, and include the Jimmy Lai from Next Media Group, and also from the National Endowment for Democracy in the U.S., NED. Some media reports yesterday also said that Benny Tai has also transferred amount of $1.45 million to the university from unknown sources, and that is used to trigger or to launch the Occupy Central movement. Well, are these amounts related to external forces? Well, there are so many questions unanswered. So through a public hearing and select committee, we can invite the people involved to explain, and that can help allay public suspicions and worries, and we can allow the evidence to speak the truth. Now, if there are rumors, then things can be clarified. Second, in your motion, you suggest that the scope of inquiry should cover the government's handling of the incident and all other related issues. I think the police must enforce the law to uphold the public law and order and core values of Hong Kong. Many members here are speaking half the truth and based on some only part of the facts and not the whole truth, and accuse the police. And this is so unfair to the police. And in many TV footages, we've seen that the police officers are caught in between the protesters and the anti-protesters, and they were trying very hard to prevent the conflicts from getting worse. Now, in face of tremendous pressure, they are still being very professional. So I think everyone can judge that. And also in dealing with massive demonstrations, well, there is a need to conduct a review. The movement covers a wide area, and the scope of study would also cover interdepartmental communication and coordination mechanism. The movement has got controlled, and well, the consequences can be dire, and it's very saddening. So another study area should be to assess the impact on various spheres in the society. I think we should also focus on the short-term impact, for example, how life is impacted on because of the traffic disruption. We should also be looking into social situation where there is impact. For example, people do not have sufficient understanding of the basic law, and also the rule of law is being undermined because of the movement, and also the society is being divided because of political confrontations and so on and so forth. So I think the study or the inquiry should cover the following points. First, the rule of law is undermined, and so the public order and social orders has been impacted upon. So the demonstrators have occupied the roads for over a month. They are disregarding other people's rights, and also they are turning a blind eye to the court's injunctions, and they are involved in a contempt of court en masse, and they're not abiding by the law, and the judiciary's authority is being called into question. Now, if this is a precedent, then the rule of law as a cornerstone of Hong Kong society will be undermined. The Bar Association and the Law Society issued statements saying that they are very worried about this. The Bar Association said that this is going to be, the Hong Kong society will be entering into an anarchy state, and this is something which is not acceptable. The occupiers are breaching are going against the basic law and the MPC-SC decision by their acts, and the one country, two systems is also being hurt. So there are far-reaching implications, and Hong Kong's fate is being impacted upon. Now, the impact is also getting wider and wider. The economic damage should also be studied. Now, many countries have issued travel alerts against Hong Kong. The Hong Kong-Shanghai Stock Connect, originally scheduled to be launched this month, is not being launched, and that we will also be undermining Hong Kong's attraction to foreign investment, and Hong Kong's commercial and financial center status will also be hurt. Now, if the situation worsens, Hong Kong's credit rating will also be going down, and capital and talents may flow out of Hong Kong. This is not to to panic people. I mean, this is true. The scope should also cover the fact that many participants are university and secondary school students. They should be born after the unification. How come that they are so keen in participating in the movement? Are there any flaws in Hong Kong's youth policies over the years? And are sufficient opportunities provided to young people to move up socially? Are there any good measures to enable people to move up socially? So we should establish a select committee to conduct an inquiry into the movement, and we should learn from past lessons, and we should gather information and facts to look into how the incident happened. I think this is something that warrants our support. Now, at this moment, the illegal occupation is still ongoing, and it is hurting our society. And I think people's tolerance has come to a tipping point, and people who are undermining rule of law and disrupting a social order, we will not support these people. I think this is also thinking shared by many people, and the community bodies have staged a petition or campaign to ask demonstrators to reopen the road, and they've collected 1.09 million signatures in 5 days. And when the co-founders of the movement were going back to their work positions, and they are asking people to stay on the streets, I think this is outrageous. I think we should reflect on the situation. I ask the demonstrators to go to return home. And I think we should step up dialogue and end the illegal occupation as soon as possible, so that order in the society can be restored as soon as possible. So I speak.
Mr. Kwok Wai-keung. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. First of all, I'd like to apologize to lawmakers because the motion should have taken place last week, and we have to postpone it until this week. And on that day, for the 35 members who were not here, I'd also like to say sorry to you, because I should have explained to you, because originally, even if you were not here, nobody would have been aware of that. All right, getting back to the subject today. Number one, I am against the motion moved by Mr. Raymond Wong. Why? That's because if you look at Mr. Wong's motion, it would only be looking at the police's handling of a particular incident. In fact, as we all know, Occupy Central is not just a movement that has far-reaching implications in Hong Kong. There are 3 protest sites, Admiralty, Causeway Bay, and Mong Kok, and therefore we have to look at it in its totality. If we just separate one part of it in our inquiry, then that would not be able to show the full picture. And if we are just looking at the police's handling of the incident, then that would only encourage the movement to continue, and it's not going to help end the movement. That's why we are not able to support Mr. Raymond Wong's motion. I will also support the motion moved by Mr. Andrew Leung, the deputy here, and there have been debates as to where the sources of funding have come from, and those from the opposition camp actually shook their heads, saying that there have been no external sources and so on. But then why can we not inquire into it? If in the end we find that there was no such funding, then that's fine. So, and the movement has given rise to law and order concerns and safety issues and so on. These are facts. And I think there has been a lot of organization before this can take place. And if you thinks that there has not been any prior organization. I think you're underestimating the preparation made by the three co-founders, because they've mooted this idea for more than 2 years. And if you say that they have not made any preparation at all, so it's all talk and no action. In fact, that's not true. You might have done something, but then you may just have forgotten, and you have actually put up the stage, and then people just come out later, but then you cannot say that you have not made the preparation at all. Mr. Deputy, it's the 33rd day into the movement, and for those occupying the streets and roads, well, during the past 33 days, through media reports, whether it's local or overseas reports, they've already got sufficient space and channels to reflect their views. As to whether or not they need to meet the central leaders, well, whether such meetings can take place would not enhance the understanding of the central authorities about this event. Well, meeting them or not does not have any bearing on whether or not they understand the situation. Well, as state leaders, if they want to find out more, of course they will have different means to find out. And let's assume that they have colluded with external forces, please do not be so naive as thinking that nobody would know, and then there is no way to find out. Well, some say that in Hong Kong, we don't have Article 23 legislation, and therefore, even if there might have been betrayal or traitors activities, well, nothing can be done about it. And if that is the case, then why do you have to worry about it? Mr. Deputy, I'm also a young person. I'm a registered social worker, and of course, I dare not say that I can represent those people out there, but then I'll attempt to understand what they think. I understand their thinking because the intention is good. There are justifications for them to take certain action, but then does it mean that the outcome would definitely be good when the intention is good? Well, that's not my conclusion. In fact, as a worker, I think we all understand it. Well, we have been greatly inconvenienced when we commute to and from work, and then for class boycotts, and even for students who are able to attend classes, they will have to take a more convoluted route. They will have to start early, and then for some workers, they have been greatly inconvenienced. And also for people who have to use the road traffic, then workers will definitely feel very gravely about this. And of course, it's a fact that people will have to wait for a few more trains before they can board it. And that's why for the anti-Occupy signature campaign, it lasted for only a couple of days, and they managed to collect more than 1 million signatures. That's because people would like to restore law and order, and they'd also like to get back to normalcy. Yes, these are from the bottom of their hearts, but then people would have this defense mechanism saying that, well, for the occupiers, they say that these signatures have been fabricated, or they have been paid to sign on it. They are trying to smear us. In fact, I have been to one of those kiosks myself. In fact, for people coming to the kiosk to sign, they do not have a high awareness about the political situation. All they want is to restore order. And I can see that there are very decent-looking young men and well-dressed ladies, and also construction workers and so on. Yes? I'd like to invoke Rule 17.2 to call for a quorum count, says Mr. Leung. Thank you for giving me a breathing space.
Wai-keung 議員。
Mr. Kwok Wai-keung. Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Well, just now I was saying that during the first 3 days of the signature campaign, well, they managed to collect more than 1 million signatures, and there were upstream workers and also frontline and grassroots workers. And next, I'd like to tell a story, because I remember when I was small, so some 25 years ago, I was still a primary school student, and I came from a poor family, and we didn't have a lot of means, and I asked my parents to take us out to have fun, and then my dad promised that well, on Sunday he would be taking me and my elder brother to our primary school so that we can have a football game. So we were playing with plastic soccer, and I can still remember vividly while we were playing, well, there was a bad guy coming along, and he asked my dad for money. I don't know whether or not it's extortion, all right. He didn't show a knife, but then that was the only occasion when I and my elder brother went back to the primary school to play football. We had never done it before, and afterwards we did not do it again. And my mom was pretty mad because the whole month's pay was taken away, and she questioned why that had happened, and she said that never again would we be allowed to play there again. But then I like to thank them and my dad for taking care of us, and because of our demands, he took us there to have fun. But then we know very well that he loves us a lot, and the reason why I'm telling the story, as we know, parents always love their children. So, well, out of good intention, he took us to the soccer pitch to play. But then, unfortunately, we had this robbery case. Well, there was a bad guy, and he featured in our story. So originally, it started off as something very nice and happy, and yet it didn't turn out to be a happy ending. And yes, we were the victims. And then during that month, we did not have good fortune, because the money was snatched from us. So it's very similar to what is happening now in the Occupy Central movement. We all know that we love Hong Kong. We have expectation on Hong Kong. We have done this out of good intention. But then if you look at the incident, is taking place in a community, and it's difficult to prevent some bad guys from coming in and causing or stirring up trouble in the city, and the nature of these incidents could change, and that could also lead to a bad outcome, and the consequence has to be borne by everyone. For example, there might have been some chaotic situation causing social turmoil, and we are all concerned about the safety of the protesters, and at the same time, for the ordinary members of the public, their life and the workers' day-to-day work might be affected. So this has happened. So we have to understand more about this incident. It might not have been what we had wanted, but then when these happen, we have to face up to them squarely. We have to deal with it more positively. We must try to end it as soon as possible. That's the message that I like to bring out. At the same time, I also hope that the young people, well, while you're at school, yes, you'll be able to study many theories and philosophies, but then when you join the workforce, you have to put them into action to find out which are executable, which are not, which are just Plato's theories, which are not pragmatic. So you will have to get real life experience before you'll be able to tell whether or not those theories can be translated into action or put into practice. So it doesn't mean that certain ideologies have to be applied before our community can become healthy. There are many issues to be resolved. For example, in this council, well, we have said that the Finance Committee has already got a some 18 items that are outstanding. So we should not be looking at one issue. The entire community has different needs and aspirations. And if we try to resort to non-cooperation in order to paralyze the operation of the government just because we want to achieve a particular political objective, it might be counterproductive. It might backfire, and therefore we hope that those in the opposition camp will do it before it's too late, so that they would not proceed with this non-cooperation campaign. It's like what we say in the signature campaign. Not everyone has done so because of some political conviction. They just want Hong Kong to move forward. Also, I'd like to respond to some points made by Ronnie Tong, Claudia Mo, and others. Is about the right to assembly. In fact, the matter is very clear. The Occupy movement has lasted for 33 days, and if you say that there is no freedom of assembly, that's not true. And if you say that there is no freedom of speech, that's not right, because they have been broadcasting their aspirations and demands. What I like to say is that the right to assembly should also be exercised with respect to the existing institution and legal system. Number one, you have to apply for approval, and number two, it should not be overnight, because, well, for the right to assembly is not the right to camping. And it should not be done at the expense of affecting other people's life. Yes, if you can identify a place that does not stand in the way of anyone else, then nobody would say no to it. But then what is happening is that you're actually affecting other people's life, and you cannot say that you cannot complain against me. You cannot say that you should not complain that I'm affecting your life. So while you are exercising your right, we should not just be loving Hong Kong. We should also love people around us. So we should be accommodating and inclusive. We should also love them as well, because we all know that in Hong Kong, all right, you cannot evict me and I cannot evict you, and therefore we have to be ready to live together. And people have been citing the lyrics of the song Under the Lion Rock. In fact, we should broaden the scope of this song. We are talking about the ordinary members of the public in Hong Kong, but then apparently they have used it within the circle of the protesters. In fact, the spirit of the song should have been broader. We are referring to the entire community of Hong Kong. We should share this common objective in developing Hong Kong. Yes, there might be divergent opinions, yet we should work hand in hand to overcome these difficulties. Because under the Lion Rock, we should not just have one voice. So I hope that we can all be rational and cool-headed, so that we can end this as soon as possible, so that we can restore a peaceful community to all of us, and then the roads can be returned to the public, so that our workers will find it easier to go back to work. Thank you.
Mr. Christopher Chung, Mr. Deputy, last week at the House Committee, I said this to you, that you should give detailed consideration to the motion. It is a trump card. It is not to deal with the citizens, but those politicians who are breaking the law. Mr. Deputy, the illegal Occupy movement has been disturbing the community for a month, and we see more and more intervention by foreign forces. The so-called Occupy movement is the Hong Kong version of a color revolution. The objective is that through these Hong Kong agents to snatch sovereignty for Hong Kong itself, and so Hong Kong can become the bridgehead to overthrow the PRC. Well, if you have done this, you cannot deny it. The pro-democracy camp has denied intervention by foreign forces, but there are many signs, many happenings that are telling us that this Occupy movement is a color revolution. On the 24th of October at the Carter Center, Jimmy Carter said this, that the Hong Kong issue is such that the U.S. should respect the sovereignty of China. So Jimmy Carter has said that, in essence, the U.S. has a role to play in organizing this color revolution. Color revolution started in the 90s of the last century. After USSR was overthrown, the U.S. led countries openly or indirectly, the countries in Middle East, in order to start a series of revolutions. They incited the people there and students to take so-called nonviolent means to overthrow governments. This time around, this Occupy movement in Hong Kong has seen the disappearance of pro-democracy members at the beginning. Academics and religious people were said to be the leaders. They incited secondary school students to boycott classes. They talked about love and peace. But in fact, it is a blatant, illegal Occupy movement. It is a color revolution. Its characteristics are very similar to other color revolutions. These movements are highly organized. They have rich resources. Just look at Admiralty. Trucks and trucks of water and food will be ferried to the area 3 times a day. And what about the cost of these tents? You think people are spontaneous? You think they have brought a tent from their home? So the people are saying pro-democracy members are organizing this Occupy movement, and people get meals and money. So is the Occupy movement supported by foreign forces and foreign resources? I think we know it in our hearts. The public know that this is an obstruction to traffic, obstruction to people's daily lives. They hate these people, these occupiers. In fact, every citizen would like the government to clear the sites as soon as possible. Just over a few days, we have been able to collect over 1 million signatures. Mr. President, over the last month or so, we have seen in the media and also on the internet the exposure of documents and evidence saying that the opposition party and also their media are in fact closely liaising with the U.S. government and U.S. activists. They accept cash donations in secret, and then they support these satellite organizations to engage in opposition activities. Just like Jimmy Lai of Nix Media, he was filmed to be on a yacht together with the ex-defense minister of the U.S. He had a chat with him for over 2 years, and he has got Mark Simon to help him, and he belonged to the U.S. Navy in the past. Now, Mark Simon was there to manage the finances of Jimmy Lai. Mark Simon's job included arranging donations to the pro-democracy camp and also the Occupy Central movement. The people who accepted donations from Jimmy Lai never declared the acceptance of the donations. That goes to show that such donations are illegal. And the opposition party leaders always meet with overseas consulates and also consuls, and also they go overseas to report on the Hong Kong situation. And through NGOs, just like NED, NEI, and also some academic organizations set up in tertiary universities, they would provide money to human rights organizations and other NGOs in Hong Kong in order to help them organize anti-government activities. Recently, it was revealed that the one of the three co-founders of Occupy, Benny Tai, donated $1.45 million to the various faculties of Hong Kong U anonymously, especially the POP headed by Mr. Robert Chung, so as to support the referendum on the 22nd of June. It was about the identity of Hong Kong people. And then it was said that the 1.45 million originated from another co-founder, Pastor Chu Yu-ming. I think this amounts to money laundering. But Mr. President, where do you think a pastor can get so much money? You know where the money comes from? Well, God knows. So, President, we can see that the Occupy movement involves different organizations and forces and people. They have come together to be anti-China. So the trump card should be used. And we can use the trump card against these traitors. Because of the intervention of foreign forces, Hong Kong is in a chaotic situation. Mr. President, they are using umbrellas in this revolution. And I like to use the analogy of mules. Mules cannot have children, and that is why these people are telling other people's children to go into the streets and not their own. And the situation is really chaotic. That is why the chairman of the House would like to move a motion to invoke the PNP Ordinance, and I would certainly support it. We hope that through the investigation, we can return truth to the public and to prevent another Occupy movement. Thank you.
Mr. Leung-sing. Call for quorum.
葛珮帆議員，請你發言。
Dr. Elizabeth Quat, President. What I've heard most in this period is that Hong Kong has gone into a ridiculous state. How come that Hong Kong has plunged into a situation? What should we do in the future? What is ridiculous is that the legal professors and politicians will teach people to break the law to go for democracy, and they can disregard court injunctions, and they should not be condemned for blocking the roads and so on. And the police officers are there to uphold the law and enforce the law, and they are being scolded day by day. So we are fighting for democracy, so there should be a majority rule. But how come that the occupiers don't go or follow the wishes of the majority of people? Why do we have to sacrifice Hong Kong's stability to exchange for what the students call an ideal tomorrow or future? What is most ridiculous is Mr. Raymond Wong's motion. When he made his remarks, Mr. Wong said clearly, and that was reported by the media, he has actively participated in the occupation since 28th of September in Mong Kok and Admiralty, and he had the chance of being arrested. But then his motion was to investigate into the police handling of the incident. So the perpetrator is suggesting that the police, the law enforcement body, should be investigated into. Now, other people are facing the same ridiculous situation. Then they are opposing a comprehensive study, inquiry into the incident. The pan-democrats, shouldn't they not take part in the debate, or else they will be accused of practicing double standards? Now, what's most ridiculous is that Mr. Benny Tai, Professor Benny Tai, and also Alex Chow said that they would turn themselves in after the movement is over, and that they are being accountable to the rule of law, and they are not breaking the law, a rule of law. They are really trying to display the spirit of the rule of law. Well, if this logic stands, does it mean that a murderer can turn himself in, and after he kills a person, and then he can manifest the rule of law? So does it mean that one can pursue his ideal and then puts himself above the law? I think the pan-democrats have a very strange logic today. Now, the Occupy Central movement is a major incident, and they are just supporting the Raymond Wong's motion of inquiring into the police handling of the Mong Kok incident on the 3rd of October. This is a very narrow scope. But then everything else should not be inquired into. I found this most weird. Since so many local media and international media have reported on Occupy Central movement, and there has been involvement of external forces in providing resources, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing, Ms. Starry Lee have cited many examples, and they have also displayed many media reports, and they reflect many people's suspicion, and they want to find the truth. So why can't we get to the bottom of the truth? Now, pan-democrats said that it's not possible that external forces are involved in the movement. Now, the pan-democrats used to give high regard to media reports, but then they said that these media reports are fabricated now, and so they are practicing double standards. Now, if what Mr. Lee Chak-yan said is true, that they are they have a clear conscience. So why are we afraid of conducting an investigation? We want to get to the bottom of the truth. This is not an excessive demand, I would say. Well, there are maybe many stories behind Occupy Central movement. How can pan-democrats be so sure that their external forces are not involved? Mr. Ronnie Tong, Mr. Kwok, Dennis Kwok, and Mr. Lee Yan opposed the comprehensive investigation. And we are not saying that we would investigate into religious bodies, churches, and so on. Mr. Andrew Leung's motion is very clear, is that we should appoint a select committee to conduct a comprehensive inquiry into the incident since 28th of September this year, including its organization and planning, funding sources, the public order and safety problems caused by the incident, the impacts in various aspects of Hong Kong, the government's handling of the incident, and all other related issues. Well, all these sound very reasonable to me. I think we should proceed with the inquiry. Mr. Ronnie Tong said that why should not we spend more time to deal with other matters, and then why should we be going down the route of political censorship? I agree with that. I hope that the LegCo can focus its discussions on livelihood issues. But then the pan-democrats are now staging a non-cooperation movement. Yesterday, there were 12 quorum calls, and that took up 2 hours and 50 minutes. And on this non-contentious establishment of the ITB, only 2 votes from the pan-democrats supported the establishment. Well, are they working for the good, overall good of Hong Kong in the long term? Students said that Hong Kong's future belongs to them. They are willing to make sacrifices to fight for a freer and democratic Hong Kong. I can feel this. I share their sentiment, and I know about their ideals. And they think that those who don't support them are selfish and that we don't understand them. But the fact is not this. The reality is not this. We adults want to protect them, and we're struggling within ourselves. On the one hand, we want students to be passionate and hopeful about Hong Kong's future. And at the same time, we want them to understand that we can't give up the freedom, the rule of law, the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. And we don't want to make sacrifices, giving up Hong Kong's good and to fight for what you hope to be the democratic Hong Kong. Over the past few days, 1 million people have signed up to ask for reopening of the roads and restoring law and order and supporting the police's law enforcement actions. A grandma told her grandson, the grandson said that they don't have to follow traffic signals because his grandson said that, well, as long as you put up your fight, and then you can flout the law. And this grandson is only 4.5 years old. So I would like to say to the students, the future doesn't belong only to you, but all Hong Kong people. And belong to people who have worked over the years to build the prosperity in Hong Kong, this generation. And we also, the Hong Kong society belongs to the young kids, and Hong Kong also belongs to China, the mainland, and we should be accountable or answerable to Hong Kong's development. President, when we had that, Benny Tai would go back to his workplace because he is, he can't put up with it anymore. Well, that makes us. That is so lovable. Now he triggered this movement. He launched this movement, and there is no end in sight. And the students are still sleeping on the street, and you want to return to your normal life. Now, some people told me that they have to spend extra 1.5 hours to go to work, and 30 days that amount to 48 hours. So, well, time is priceless. And how do you compensate these people? Well, how come that you can go back to your normal life, and why can't we go back to our normal life? A doctor told me yesterday. He said that he and his family don't support Occupy Central, and his daughter, University, said that I don't deserve. You don't deserve to be my dad. Well, this doctor saved many lives over the years, and today he doesn't deserve to be somebody's father. This father is so heartbroken, and the family feels that they've lost a daughter. Now, to fight for what they call true democracy, should we family relationships be tarnished and broken? The movement has been here for over a month. Roads are blocked, and there have been conflicts and confrontations. We are in a very dangerous state. Well, luckily, there were no major fire incidents, and well, we are fortunate and lucky, and we have and we owe this to the police, who have exercised much self-restraint. And I would also like to thank members of the public. And yesterday, a 15-year-old teenager tried to use homemade explosives to blow up the police station, and fortunately he was stopped. And this, well, if we allow illegal acts to exist, then it will encourage people to commit illegal acts. Now, if someone breaks a window, the glass of window, people may follow suit and do the same. Now, if the movement lasts longer, there will be more crimes. Well, you can imagine that if the 15-year-old teenager was not in the police station and he was in the occupied areas trying to detonate the explosives, well, the consequences can be very dire. So how should we clear the sites? We don't want to use violence or force to clear the sites. Well, this is not the time for us to insist on our own ways and means, and we must forge a consensus through democratic means, through dialogue, communication, and so on. The occupiers are using threatening tactics and saying that they will not give up, they will not withdraw. This is not good, and this is setting a bad example for us. And this does no good to the democratic development of Hong Kong. I hope the students would will not be turning a deaf ear to proper advice. They should genuinely listen to others, and they should take responsibility, and they should make rational and good decisions. President, I think it's time that we should give up the movement, give up our hatred, and it's time to reconcile with friends, restore order in the family. We should investigate into the incident. And also, the government and various sectors should study the aftermaths of the incident and try to come up with measures to resolve people's grievances and build a better future for Hong Kong's young generation. This is a difficult time for Hong Kong, and we must get united, and we must work for the good, generally work for the good of Hong Kong. Now, this motion on inquiring into the police handling of the incident on the 3rd of October will only deal a further blow to the police's morale. It will not do good any good to the incident. Well, many members of the public are very angry, and they have emotional problems. Some even can't go to sleep. Well, have insomnia. I hope that people will not get too angry, or else they will get into a chaotic state, and they easily commit mistakes because of that. Now, on the contrary, we should be more positive, say good words, do good deeds, and pass on the positive energy to others. Hong Kong is a very blessed place. This is our home. President, we should try to forge build a harmonious society, and if we work hand in hand, I'm sure that we can overtide all difficulties. I speak, and I oppose Mr. Raymond Wong's motion and support Mr. Andrew Leung's motion.
Mr. Albert Chan, President, after listening to Elizabeth's quote, it's really very scary. So it's like an executor saying that after execution, all right, for the residents or the people, they should not call for help, or they should not greet, they should not moan, because this is the tone that they've adopted in governing Hong Kong. They have actually turned Hong Kong people into slaves, and when Hong Kong young people try to come out to express their views, you're telling them that you should not be involved in the struggle, you should be obedient, and you should just be lackeys. So this is the tone that the Hong Kong communists are adopting. Here, President, I'd like to make two appeals. One, whoever supports democracy, whoever supports the umbrella movement, please do not ask the students to go back to schools. Please do not advise these young people to give up on the umbrella movement. But many friends have given a lot of reasons because they are concerned that there might be suppression by force, and we might be back to the days of the Tiananmen Square. And the more you do not support the movement, the more you do not support the students, then there is a higher chance that they will resort to force to crack down on the movement. And if you tell the whole world that you are condemning the use of force and violence, and if you try to condemn the shameful acts done by the government, you will have to tell the world what is most unfair in Hong Kong. And if you are more courageous, then you should go down to the Umbrella Square. You should go to Mong Kok or even Causeway Bay. You should show your support for the young people, because any such move or any expression of concern would only add to the scare. And the biggest obstacle to fighting for democracy is scare and fear. And the more you fear, the farther away you'll be moving from democracy. Please speak on the two motions on invoking the Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Please speak on the subject. Mr. President, precisely because of the fear, we have to inquire into the shameful acts of the police. I'd like to make a further appeal to the people not to ask the students to retreat. And another point is about the inquiry into this. Well, you've heard people say that Mong Kok is already on the verge of riot and is getting out of control. Please do not tell this, because this is not true. And very often when there are chaotic situations or scenes, it would only last for 10-20 minutes. Why have we had such scenes? That's because the triads and also those who call themselves people who love Hong Kong, they would go there to create the chaos. And they have been paid by the forces claiming to maintain stability. And if you've been to Mong Kok and if you stay overnight, yes, there might have been a lot of disturbance, and as a result you might not be able to sleep well, but then it's very far from being on the verge of a riot. And the more they say, they're actually acting as the mouthpiece for the government. So please do not become the mouthpiece of the government when you try to appeal for people to go home. Well, on the two motions, of course, I'll be staunchly against Mr. Andrew Leung's motion, but then deep down in my heart, I would really like it to be passed and carried, because for those who are in support of the umbrella movement, they can queue up and they get asked to attend the hearings, and then your hearing will not be completed in 3 years. So I really hope that you can carry this motion so that you can convene this public hearing and you'll be able to listen to the support from the members of the public for this movement. It's not about Occupy. It's not about the Occupy movement. So if you ask them to come forward to tell you what is happening, then you will be able to understand it. Now I'll be explaining why I support this. In fact, if you look at a comment by Ma Wen, is very neutral, and he is a mainlander coming to Hong Kong, and he has settled in Hong Kong for some time. He understands the situation under communist rule, and he also understands the deep-rooted conflicts in Hong Kong. He has already pointed out one of the emphasis of the umbrella movement, that's the plutocrats have got hold of everything, and as a result, the younger people do not have anything. That's the reason why there are so many young people who have come forward and staged this movement by occupying the roads, in this Civil Disobedience Act. That's because they cannot see a future in Hong Kong. In fact, about 2 years ago, when Sau-lan was elected, I already said this. All right, you have elected someone who was used to telling lies, and that would bring problems. And I already said that this is a habitual liar, so he's so used to telling lies. Definitely, he will bring about a collapse in the governance. And I've also pointed out about 2 years ago that with Andy Zhang becoming the commissioner for police, all right, he's blindly espousing the use of force and violence, thinking that that would help govern the city. All right, you have a liar chief executive, and you have a commissioner for police who likes the use of violence, and also you have an undemocratic legislature. With these three factors adding together, and if they form the governance structure of Hong Kong, inevitably you have a governance disaster. That's why when you see this the explosion of this movement, and also the governance and the mistakes are committed by the police is mistake after mistake that has led to this umbrella movement. That's why in undertaking this inquiry into the blunders committed by the police, that would help enable us to understand the deep-rooted problems and the social problems. That's a very important factor leading to this movement. The reason why I talk about the importance of lies, because in the community, if nobody dares to speak the truth, then inevitably there would be a lot of mistakes in governance. It's like the Secretary for Security, every time when he commented on the incident, there would be extensive press reports and media reports. There were people who had first-hand experience, and he would just turn a blind eye to all those. So he was oblivious to this. He dare not face the truth, and he dare not tell the truth. And towards the end of September, there was this picture on the internet. So please take a look. Please do not just keep your head down. I don't know what you are looking at. Please take a look at this picture. At the time, you said that, you had this banner asking people to leave immediately, or else they would fire. You said that that was never displayed. In fact, that's a picture taken by the person who was there, and obviously the policemen were holding this banner, and the policemen holding this banner were displaying this banner, disperse or we fire. This is a very big slogan and notification. They were displaying this to the public. And you know very well that the police officers holding the banner were very experienced, and they had been trained to do that. And before they did that, obviously, some senior police management had taken the decision and instructed them to do so. And yet, weeks after that, you're still refusing to admit to this fact. So it shows that the senior management in the government, including the Secretary for Security, you have been influenced by Mr. 689, who is a big liar. And when the senior echelon of the government continues to govern with lies, then inevitably you will not be able to deal with and resolve this problem. In Czechoslovakia, Havel, who wrote this book, The Power of Those Who Are Powerless, he has talked about the importance of telling the truth. Even for those of us who do not have power, when we are suppressed and oppressed, we will still have to insist on telling the truth. So that's the biggest power that we have. And the young people have come forward to tell the truth. It's not like you plutocrats, as Ma Wan said. All right, you have obtained all the benefits, and now the young people have come forward to tell the community and to tell the ruling and to tell those in power and the plutocrats that they are no longer able to accept such oppression. And yet, as the police have been politically manipulated and they have fired 87 canisters of tear gas, and they were on the verge of firing at the people. So only by conducting this inquiry will we be able to get to the bottom of the truth. Mr. President, the reason why this investigation is important, because only by having this inquiry will we be able to return justice to the public. Earlier on in this council, we also talk about the need to investigate into the alleged corruption of the chief executive. And this is the way the Communist Party is ruling. All right, you would smear people, and then you would kill people, and then you would try to comfort the bereaved families. That's what they have been doing over the past 60 years. You are almost experts on this, so you make use of the media to disseminate false information, and then you create fear, and you try to create a false phenomenon in order to pull wool over the eyes of the public. So during the past few decades, we had the Cultural Revolution under the communist rule. Some 78 million people were killed. So the number far exceeded those being killed by Stalin and Hitler. So you can see that under communist rule, well, for the young people in Hong Kong, that's because they have been smeared by the pro-establishment camp, that they have been funded by external forces or foreign countries. So that's because Hong Kong has been governed by lies. And as a result, the conflicts cannot be resolved. Back in 2003, we had 500,000 people taking to the streets, and the liaison officer report to Beijing was that it was funded by CIA. So it's exactly the same as what you're saying now. The umbrella movement, you said that it was funded and manipulated by overseas countries. In fact, this is a movement by Hong Kong students. Once again, I can say this categorically, that the umbrella movement was led and initiated by Hong Kong students. They are fighting for democracy as a local pro-democracy movement. These students, as Ma Yun's observation pointed out, he also wrote about those of you who are rich and powerful. You are controlling too many resources, and as a result, these young people are feeling desperate. They are in despair, and you're trying to cover it up with lies, and that would only further enrage the young people, and the resistance in Hong Kong will be further strengthened. And these young people, and also those with an awareness for democracy, you're actually pushing them towards pro-independence. So Hong Kong will be moving towards the path of independence, like Xinjiang so please do not tell any further lies, because you would only be putting Hong Kong into a greater quagmire, and you would be causing more chaos in Hong Kong. You would be causing more disorder. This is a social movement, and in any social movement, we have to understand the needs of the public. Well, the Communist Party is best at that. So you will have to deal with the conflicts, you will have to deal with the sentiments of the public, instead of trying to adopt a high-handed approach to suppress everything and to cheat the community and also those in power in order to achieve your own ends. Well, you're trying to maintain stability. That's because you will be able to make some profit out of it. You are there to serve your own motive and objective. Well, back in 1995, the police said in his recruitment exercise that they were trying to uphold the law and they were real men. But then over the years, we are giving people the impression that they behave as if they were candid and open, but then they try to beat people up in a dark corner. So you will have to conduct this investigation in order to do justice to the police, because during the past few weeks, during several conflicts and clashes, I could see that most police officers abide by the law, and only a very small percentage of them, less than 10% of them, were mad and they committed those acts. That's why in conducting this inquiry, we are giving justice to the police and also to the community, and most importantly, giving justice to the students.
Dr. Fernando Zhang, President, I speak in opposition to Mr. Andrew Leung's motion to invoke the PNP Ordinance to investigate into the Occupy Central Movement, and I speak in support of Mr. Wong Yuk-man's motion on investigating into the police's handling of the triad gang's attacks on citizens rallying in Mong Kok on the 3rd of October 2014. Mr. President, the pro-establishment camp says incessantly that we would like to investigate into the Occupy Central Movement because there must be forces working behind the scenes. There must be a lot of organization, detailed organization, and foreign forces buttressing the movement. I think they are naive, and in fact they are insulting all the participants of the movement. Number two, I'd like to point out that the most important role of this council under the separation of powers is to monitor the government or executive, especially when we do not have a truly democratic system. The council under separation of powers should act as an independent monitor of the executive so that this executive hegemonistic executive will not be able to do whatever it likes. But now the pro-establishment camp actually proposes that this council should be a council to monitor and judge the civic society. Look at this Occupy movement. We are talking about the people of Hong Kong, but we are faced with a huge setup, which is the government. It has everything. Even in the council here today, even the power to legislate is almost monopolized by the executive. The executive has to table laws before we have a chance to scrutinize them and approve them. If the executive refuses to act, we have to sit here without anything to do. Article 74 of the Basic Law ties our hands and feet vis-à-vis our legislative power. This is an unfair system, and yet you say you want to investigate into the civic society. We are talking about the powers that be on the one side, and the other side, we have people who have no powers in their hands. Where lies the responsibility? Why do you always stand on the side of the wall? We always side with the X. What is this movement about? I want real universal suffrage. That is a banner hung on the Lion Rock. You say people should pocket it first. In other words, you admit that it is not real universal suffrage. That is clear. According to the 2007 NPC-SC resolution, we should have universal suffrage in 2017 to return the CE, and then in 2020 there may be universal suffrage to return all members of the Legislative Council. If you deliver the promise, there wouldn't be the umbrella movement or the Occupy Central movement. This is because you have reneged on your promise. Well, it's all right. If you don't deliver, as the SALG, you should say, sorry, the people of Hong Kong. If the NPC will go back on its words, there is nothing we can do, but at least I will fight for it to the end on your behalf. Can you act in that spirit? I said last week that the entire Occupy movement and the blockade of roads, that has all been a result of compulsion on your part. I think nobody had ever imagined to blockade Admiralty. If you had not blocked all access to the assembly, if you had not announced or declared it as an illegal assembly, there wouldn't have been this blockade. People were forced onto the road, and then you launched the tear gas. If you had not launched the tear gas, there wouldn't be assemblies in Mong Kok and Causeway Bay. You were behind all this, and now you want to say you want to investigate into the civic society and the funding source and foreign forces. Oh, come on. Go and take a look. Why don't you go and talk to the demonstrators? They are there day and night. Your officers are here. Why don't you take a stroll and then sit down and talk to them, and then you'll understand that somehow suddenly people would give you a bowl of soup. And my Kai Fongs, 2 women, would take a whole suitcase to deliver Chinese herbal tea to the demonstrators. You think they are supported by foreign forces? And then a lady from a nearby residential dwelling would come down and give rice dumplings to people in Rodney Street. Why would people be doing that? Do you think they do it for no reason? Are they supported by foreign forces? Talk to these people. Ask them where they come from. Have they come from foreign countries? Why are they delivering food to the assembly? Are they crazy? Are they having too much money and don't know how to spend it? Is it that they have left their business so they have all the time in their hands? No, these people are still in business. I talked to them. But yes, some of them are leaving the business behind for the moment to support the movement. There are numerous such people. Just pick a few and talk to them. And the students, they may not be making money, but they present themselves. They sacrifice their time to support the movement. You think they are supported by foreign forces? You think the pan-democrats are behind them? Oh, come on. It would be good if they don't chase us out of the assembly venue. You think we can control them? With just $1 million, we can operate such a movement? Come on. You have the national security system. You have the funding for maintaining stability. How much money are you spending? Day in, day out. And you talk about Benny Tai's $1 million donation. Please, that's peanuts to you, isn't it? You think that money was used on the movement? Well, if you want to create any investigation, why doesn't the security panel and the CMA panel conduct hearings? Get the public to come here and tell you why they are here to occupy the roads. Who directed them? Who gave them the money? Come on, conduct a hearing and people will be queuing up to talk to you. Ask them who aided and abetted them. And you talk about investigating the civic society. You are using these Damocles sword against those who have no power, no authority. People take supplies to the assembly. I met up with some people operating vans and container trucks, and they told me face to face that they saw the student movement which was suppressed. They wanted to do something and they organized 50-odd vans to come and help. You call this foreign forces? A few days ago, I heard from the main platform that 8,000 meal boxes were delivered. Well, check it out. Is that some kind of foreign force? Every day soup is delivered. The same for Causeway Bay, the same for Mong Kok. Why don't you investigate into those? There was a surveyor named Mok, with also accountancy background. He has been on hunger strike for 59 days. I don't know which foreign force would be behind this. This is the will of one person. He sacrifices himself to tell Hong Kong people that we are worth basic political rights. We want to elect our own political leader. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that, but you won't even allow it. But that is your promise. This is what you promised Hong Kong people. Now you renege on your promise. And you forced out this movement. The co-founders had already said that this was not according to their script. This is not their plan. Their plan was originally very simple. There would be 2,000 people sitting down in a pedestrian precinct, and then these people would be arrested, and that's the end of it. But you go out and talk to the young people. Today, Reuters released a survey saying that almost 90% of the young people here would be willing to occupy the street for 1 year. You think we can direct them? Well, you can, the government can. You tell them to leave, go back, leave. Where to? To a society with a big wealth gap, to an unjust system, to a society with collusion between government and business, to an order of slavery. This is what you are telling them to go back to. I met a student that I had not seen for years in Mong Kok, and then he came to the point almost immediately. He said, this is a very difficult movement, but we are talking about, on the one side, people want to continue to make a living. On the other side, people are talking about dignity. Their generation does not only want survival and subsistence. I don't know whether you have read psychology. Maslow has this pyramid of needs. You, the powers that be, you, the pro-establishment camp, you are seeking to reduce people to the lowest level of existence, and that is survival. Survival means everything. Yes, people have to be fed, but we are in the 21st century. The young people of today want to escalate to higher levels. They talk about ideals. They talk about dignity. You don't allow it. You just ask them to survive. You still want all the powers, and dignity is reserved for the selected few. They are putting up this struggle. They are starting this movement, and you say you want to investigate into them. You continue with the suppression. On the 3rd of October, what happened? There are so many clips on the internet. They would pretend to arrest people and then only to release them. These were attackers who were clearly triads. I don't need to quote from news coverage, both locally and overseas. Read the stories. Why the police acted as bystanders? Why was there no reinforcement? Why do we say the police would always be impartial and professional? I don't want to target the police. As a matter of fact, the police has just been relegated into a pool of suppressing the people, and they have been made a substitute for a sensible policy. The important thing is Hong Kong people have stood up. Hong Kong people don't only talk about survival now. Our young people should be our pride. In New York Times, Joshua Wong wrote an article, and he said very clearly that we used to think that Hong Kong was a society which was interested only in money and interest. No, that is no longer the case. They no longer regard making money as the core value. You cannot cheat them anymore. They don't even fear pepper spray and tear gas. They don't even fear the triads. You go for batons, you go for triads. Get more triads and pro-government parties to attack them. Today, the movement is still peaceful. Thousands, tens of thousands of protesters have come out, and they have not even broken a glass bottle. In Mong Kok, jewelry shops and banks continue to operate. They say parents should not take children there, but there are many children in the occupied areas. Danger appears only when there are triads and pro-government parties, including blue ribbon wearers, appear. Plus, when there are policemen, then there may be danger. I hope the police will continue to maintain political neutrality and protect the life and limb of every citizen. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.